Have you ever met someone who changed your life forever, even though they were never your husband, wife, or romantic partner? Perhaps it was a childhood friend whose memory still brings tears to your eyes, a teacher whose simple words continue to guide your decisions years later, a coworker who unexpectedly helped you discover your true strength, or even a stranger whose kindness arrived at exactly the moment you needed hope. Have you ever wondered why certain people appear in your life for only a short time, yet leave behind a feeling so deep that you can never completely forget them? While some relationships fade quietly into the past, others remain alive within our hearts, shaping the way we think, love, trust, and grow. Many spiritual traditions invite us to reflect on the possibility that every meaningful relationship carries a lesson, whether that lesson comes through love, joy, disappointment, or challenge. Regardless of your personal beliefs about karma or destiny, these encounters can become powerful mirrors, revealing hidden fears, unhealed emotions, forgotten strengths, and opportunities for inner growth. Often, we spend years asking why someone entered our life or why they had to leave, when perhaps a more meaningful question is this: what part of myself did this relationship awaken? Sometimes the greatest gift another person gives us is not their permanent presence, but the wisdom we discover because of them. Today, I invite you to join me on a peaceful journey of reflection. Together, we will explore how friendships, family connections, mentors, colleagues, and even brief encounters can gently shape our inner world. This is not about finding someone to blame or proving a spiritual theory. It is about looking inward with honesty, compassion, and an open heart, allowing every relationship to become an invitation to understand ourselves more deeply and to move one step closer to lasting peace. One of the greatest misunderstandings many of us carry is believing that only romantic relationships have the power to shape our lives. We naturally give importance to marriage, love, and lifelong partnerships, yet if we pause and honestly reflect on our own journey, we often discover that some of our deepest emotional experiences came from people who were never romantic partners at all. Think about the friend who stood beside you during your darkest days, only to disappear without explanation. Think about the teacher who believed in you before you believed in yourself, or the mentor whose encouragement changed the direction of your life forever. Perhaps there was a sibling who constantly challenged your patience, a coworker who awakened hidden insecurities, or a neighbor whose simple acts of kindness restored your faith in humanity. These relationships may not have carried the label of romance, yet they left lasting impressions on your heart. The real challenge begins when we become so focused on the people themselves that we overlook what those relationships were revealing within us. We ask, why did they leave? Why did they treat me this way? Or, why can't I forget them? These are natural questions, but they often keep our attention fixed outward instead of inward. Every meaningful relationship has the potential to reflect something about our own inner world. It may reveal a fear of rejection, a longing to be understood, a need for forgiveness, or a strength we never realized we possessed. When we see relationships only as stories about other people, we miss the opportunity to understand ourselves more deeply. But when we gently turn our attention inward, every connection, whether joyful or painful, can become a quiet invitation to grow in wisdom, compassion, and self-awareness. Sometimes the greatest transformation begins not by changing the people around us, but by discovering what each relationship has awakened within our own heart. Why do certain people seem to enter our lives at exactly the right moment, while others leave us carrying questions that remain unanswered for years? From a spiritual perspective, life is not simply a collection of random events. Instead, it can be viewed as a journey of continuous learning, where every experience has the potential to help us grow in wisdom, compassion, and self-awareness. Whether you see this as divine guidance, the unfolding of life's circumstances, or simply the natural process of human growth, relationships often become the classrooms where our deepest lessons are learned. Every person we meet brings something unique into our lives. Some encourage us with kindness and remind us of the goodness that exists in the world. Others test our patience, challenge our beliefs, or expose emotional wounds we did not realize were still within us. These moments are rarely comfortable, yet they often become the turning points that shape our character. Modern psychology offers a similar insight, suggesting that our present relationships can awaken old emotional patterns formed during childhood or earlier experiences. A simple conversation may trigger feelings of rejection, fear, or insecurity, not because of the present moment alone, but because it touches something that has been quietly waiting for healing. Spiritual practice invites us to notice these reactions without immediately judging ourselves or blaming others. Instead of asking, "Why is this person making my life difficult?" we can gently ask, "What is this experience helping me understand about myself?" That single shift in perspective transforms relationships from sources of suffering into opportunities for inner growth. We begin to see that every meaningful encounter, whether joyful or challenging, can become a guide leading us toward greater patience, deeper compassion, and a more peaceful heart. When we learn to observe life in this way, every relationship becomes more than an event, it becomes a quiet invitation to awaken. Many spiritual traditions speak of karma, not as a force of punishment or reward, but as a gentle principle of learning and growth. From this perspective, every choice we make, every thought we repeatedly hold, and every action we take leaves an impression upon our mind and heart. Over time, these impressions can influence how we respond to new experiences and how we relate to the people who enter our lives. Whether you understand karma as a spiritual truth or simply as a meaningful way to reflect on life's patterns, it invites us to look beyond blame and ask deeper questions. Instead of wondering why the same types of relationships keep appearing, we begin to ask what they might be teaching us. Perhaps we repeatedly meet people who do not appreciate us because we have not yet learned to value ourselves. Perhaps we attract friendships that become one-sided because we struggle to set healthy boundaries. Or maybe someone enters our life with unexpected kindness simply to remind us that hope still exists after a difficult season. These experiences do not necessarily prove that every relationship is connected to past lives or hidden destiny. Sometimes the patterns we notice are rooted in our present habits, our emotional wounds, or the beliefs we quietly carry about ourselves. The true value of the idea of karma is that it encourages personal responsibility instead of helplessness. It reminds us that while we cannot always choose who enters our lives or how others behave, we can choose how we respond, what we learn, and who we become because of those experiences. As our awareness grows, old patterns begin to loosen their grip, and we find ourselves making wiser choices with greater compassion and clarity. In that quiet transformation, we discover that the deepest purpose of any meaningful relationship may not be to complete us, but to help us awaken to the peace, wisdom, and strength that have always existed within our own soul. How do we recognize that a relationship may be inviting us to grow? The answer is often found not in dramatic events, but in the quiet patterns that repeat throughout our lives. Have you noticed that you keep meeting the same kind of people, even though their names and faces are different? Perhaps you often become the one who gives endlessly while receiving very little in return. Maybe you repeatedly find yourself seeking approval, fearing rejection, or feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness. Or perhaps there is someone who left your life years ago, yet thoughts of them still arise unexpectedly, bringing emotions that seem as fresh as they were on the day you said goodbye. These recurring experiences can gently invite us to pause and look within. Instead of immediately asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" we might ask, "What part of myself is asking to be understood, healed, or strengthened?" Sometimes life places a patient friend in our path to teach us trust. At other times, a difficult colleague may challenge us to develop healthy boundaries and self-respect. A mentor may awaken talents we never believed we possessed, while a brief conversation with a stranger can offer exactly the words our heart needed to hear. Even painful relationships can become meaningful teachers when we are willing to reflect with honesty instead of resentment. The lesson is not that every encounter has a hidden mystical meaning, but that every significant encounter offers an opportunity to learn something valuable about ourselves. As we become more aware of these patterns, we stop viewing relationships as random events that simply happen to us. Instead, we begin to see them as invitations to grow in wisdom, compassion, courage, and emotional maturity. Over time, this simple shift in perspective transforms everyday interactions into meaningful moments that quietly shape the person we are becoming, one relationship at a time. Once we begin to recognize the lessons hidden within our relationships, a new question naturally arises: how do we respond in a way that brings peace instead of more pain? The first step is not to change other people, but to gently transform the way we meet our own thoughts and emotions. Healing begins with awareness. Whenever someone triggers anger, sadness, disappointment, or fear, resist the urge to react immediately. Instead, pause for a moment and take a slow, conscious breath. Give yourself permission to observe what is happening inside without judgment. Ask yourself, what feeling has this situation awakened within me? You may discover an old fear of rejection, a desire to be accepted, or a wound that has quietly waited for compassion rather than criticism. Daily moments of silence, prayer, or meditation can help create the inner space needed to notice these patterns with greater clarity. Writing your thoughts in a journal can also be a powerful practice, allowing you to recognize recurring emotions and relationship patterns over time. Equally important is learning the difference between forgiveness and approval. Forgiveness does not mean pretending that hurtful actions were acceptable, nor does it require you to remain in unhealthy relationships. Instead, forgiveness is the decision to stop allowing past pain to control your present peace. At the same time, wisdom teaches us to establish healthy boundaries with kindness and respect, protecting our well-being without hardening our hearts. As we strengthen our connection with the divine, or simply with our deepest values of love, truth, and compassion, we become less dependent on the changing behavior of others for our happiness. Gradually, relationships stop becoming battles to win or losses to fear. They become opportunities to practice patience, understanding, courage, and unconditional kindness. In that quiet inner transformation, we discover that true healing is not found by controlling the people around us, but by cultivating peace within ourselves, one mindful response at a time. As we reach the end of this journey together, perhaps the most beautiful realization is that the true purpose of our relationships is not simply to make us happy, but to help us become more awake, more compassionate, and more deeply connected to the highest qualities within ourselves. Throughout life, people will come and go. Some will remain by our side for many years, while others will stay only long enough to teach us a lesson that could change us forever. We cannot always choose who enters our lives, and we cannot always control who leaves. But we can choose how we allow those experiences to shape our heart. Every meaningful relationship offers us a quiet invitation to grow in love instead of fear, in understanding instead of judgment, and in forgiveness instead of resentment. Many spiritual teachers have reminded us that lasting peace does not come from trying to hold on to every person we love. Rather, it comes from discovering a deeper source of peace that exists within us, one that remains steady even as life continues to change. When we begin to nurture that inner connection, through prayer, meditation, self-reflection, or simply by living with greater awareness, we gradually stop expecting other people to complete us or define our worth. Instead, we appreciate them for the gifts they bring, whether those gifts come in the form of joy, encouragement, challenge, or wisdom. We begin to understand that every encounter has the potential to expand our heart if we meet it with openness and sincerity. In that awakening, relationships become less about possession and more about presence, less about expectation and more about gratitude. And perhaps that is one of life's greatest spiritual lessons. When our hearts are rooted in love, wisdom, and inner peace, every relationship, whether brief or lifelong, can become a sacred step on the journey of becoming the person we were always meant to be. As we come to the end of today's reflection, I invite you to carry just one thought with you. Every meaningful relationship has the potential to teach us something valuable if we are willing to learn with an open heart. Some people enter our lives to encourage us, some challenge us to grow, and some leave behind lessons that only become clear with time. Whatever your own journey has been, I hope today's message has inspired you to look at your relationships with a little more compassion, a little more patience, and a little more understanding. Remember, true peace begins within. The more we understand ourselves, the more wisely we can love others, and the more gently we can move through life's changing seasons. Now, I would love to hear from you. Which non-romantic relationship has had the greatest impact on your life, and what important lesson did it teach you? It could be a friend, a parent, a sibling, a teacher, a mentor, or even someone you met only once. Your story may become the encouragement that another person reading the comments needs today. Please share your thoughts in the comments below, because this community grows stronger when we learn from one another with kindness and respect. If this video brought you peace, clarity, or a new perspective, I warmly invite you to subscribe to the channel and become part of this growing journey of spiritual reflection and inner growth. If you know someone who may find comfort or inspiration in these words, please share this video with them. And before you leave, tell me one more thing in the comments. What spiritual topic or life question would you like us to explore in the next video? I read your suggestions carefully, and many of our future videos are inspired by your thoughtful ideas. Thank you for spending these precious moments with me. Until we meet again, may your heart be filled with peace, your mind with wisdom, and your life with compassion. Jai Gurudev.